Hey, it's me. So today I'm gonna be doing something that I haven't done in a little while. I feel like I said the same thing in my last intro. I know it's been a while since I've done a Create This Book 2 episode. Yeah, I did. I'm gonna be making some DIY pins. This is what I made. This was days of work. Fits in the palm of my hand. They were worth it though.
They're definitely worth it.
Also, I see you eyeballing the shirt. Pickle foil in rainbow.
It's pretty amazing, right?
Just to let you know, this is a limited edition design. I also have a promotion going on for 10% off when you use the code PICKLE10.
If you've been around my channel for a long time, then you will know that I have done this before. All of these friends back here, I don't know where I was pointing. Here. So I have made several of these in the past. Let's get on to making the pins.
So our adventure begins with a couple pieces of paper. There we go, paper. I'm gonna cut the sheets into smaller sheets. And I'm just using one piece at a time to sketch out what will become each of my different pin designs. So what do I want to do? That's kind of mesmerizing. I decided that I wanted to create a set of pins with all the same theme. So I'm going with food animal combinations. Oh yes! So my task is to create a set of food animal combinations. And of course I was taking this very seriously. I spent a really long time coming up with all the different ideas for these designs. I even sketched out a ton of them beforehand. I use this notebook to just scribble down my ideas super quick, so there's some nightmares in there. Eustace, is that you? And you thought the paint job was creepy. Anyway, in the past, I think I've been kind of quick to rush through the sketching process because the coloring is the fun part. I just want to get to that. This time, I just decided to
slow down.
Be patient, make a good sketch, do it right. Oh wow, I never thought I'd have a use for that song, but there it is again. Some of these may look slightly confusing, but don't worry, I can explain. Not right now though, we'll talk about it later. I loved coming up with these ideas, and I think I ended up with 12 different food animal combinations in total. Combining food and animals, it's very high up there on my list of obsessions.
It just makes me so happy.
Can we call them something different than food animal combinations? It's not very catchy and it's kind of annoying to say. How about Fanimals?
That sounds like yogurt.
Or Fanimoods?
Just getting dumb now.
Okay, I don't know. Oh! Foodimals! That works, I like that. Outside of this video though, I'll probably never use that word. So there, all the Foodimal sketches are done, and it's time to bring them to life. They're currently a little bit dead in the eyes. So this is what I use to create my pins. The incredible shrinking plastic. They're called Shrinky Dinks. I like to just say shrink plastic though, because I feel like an idiot using the words Shrinky Dinks. You can use this stuff for all kinds of different crafts. Not quite sure about picture frames. Why would you even do that? So let me open this up. Love that. Who hates the sound of crinkling plastic? Sorry. This is the rough and ready variety, so you can still see through them, but it's not perfectly clear. They do have a crystal clear version, but I've actually never used that. I'm going to be coloring these with Posca paint pens. Get rid of this pen though.
She doesn't even go here.
So I'm just picking out the first design to get colored. Ha, nice choice. So I'm cutting a square out of the plastic, roughly the same size as the sketch, and then I'm using some masking tape to secure the pieces together so that they don't move around. This is my demonstration of that. Make sure the rough side is facing out, and we're ready to color. So this little guy, he's a sloth. He was gonna be happy, but that just didn't look right to me. So this is how he ended up instead. Looks kind of familiar, but I don't know. I can't seem to place him. So this wasn't intentionally based on that squishy sloth, but one second I was just drawing a sloth, and then the next second I was like, oh,
it's you!
I decided to combine a sloth and a burrito because sloths are slow and lazy, and so I thought if I put him in a burrito, it'd be kind of like he's in a blanket. I tried to be clever with some of these ideas, so bear with me with that. Once it's done being colored, I just pulled the sketch off of the back. I do save each of my sketches because if I ever wanted to remake this, I could use the same sketch again. Once you do separate it from the paper, you really start to see all those little imperfections. Ooh, it's like looking at your face up close. Moving on to the next design, I picked out this one randomly, and then I decided, nah, I don't want you.
But I'm sorry.
So I swapped it out with this one instead. This one is a penguin popsicle because because penguins like the cold and popsicles are cold. Oh, we're dealing with a genius here. Also, penguins are kind of popsicle shaped. Oh yeah, I kept getting these two markers very confused and it was driving me crazy. I decided I hated that dark blue outline, so I ended up going over that. And I think that this came out cute. Okay, who's next? Just choose one. All right, selected the pig. For this one, I didn't really have a clever reason why I chose to combine a pig with an ice cream sundae. I wanted to do a pig and I wanted to do an ice cream sundae, so they just kind of ended up getting thrown together. But I really do like it. I think that the colors look really nice. It does slightly trigger me that the cup is not perfectly symmetrical, but you know, I drew it, so wonkiness is to be expected. Okay, who's the next one? Oh, so this one, I mean, it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it, but like, this idea is nothing too fresh or exciting. We've seen the cat burger design. Basically, this is the same thing, but instead of a cat, it's a bear.
Wow, so creative.
I'm not giving myself a single originality point for this one, but I really wanted to do a hamburger, and I thought a bear would work because then it could be a hamburger. It's a cheeseburger, actually. Ooh. My brown marker just, you know, had a little accident.
It's happened to all of us, don't worry.
Kind of weird though, because I've used these several times in the past and it never had that problem, but this just kept on happening. Gosh. And then of course I have to wait forever to let the paint dry. That's one thing about using these instead of colored pencils. You do have to wait for the paint to dry before going over it, or else you'll end up with a big smudgy mess. Okay, there he is. Oh, this dude. So this one is supposed to be a moose. Moose. It's a play on words, you know, because he's a moose, but he's also chocolate mousse. Oh, what the? Okay, you've got to stop doing that. Oh, and look at that. I got the two orange colors confused again. When am I gonna notice that? I do like this idea, but perhaps I should have designed this in a slightly different way that didn't make it look like a literal pile of poop. The funny thing is, in my original sketch, I made this in a little bowl, but then for some reason I changed it, but it's chocolate mousse, not a poop with antlers. Okay. You again.
Sorry about rejecting you earlier.
So this one is a straw bunny, and it's based on a drawing that I did in the past. Some people said that that bunny looks sad, so she's had an attitude adjustment. The majority of my DIY pin collection was actually colored with colored pencils, but I will say these pens are a lot easier and faster to use than pencils. There are pros and cons to both. You can't get as much detail with the Posca pens, and you know, obviously you can't blend and shade. Also, you have pretty limited colors. I hope they come out with some new colors soon because we're definitely missing a few. I mean, there's no dark teal, there's no taxi yellow, there's no lime green, and not to mention, there's no baby blue. What kind of world are we living in where baby blue is not a priority color?
Nobody cares.
Here's another familiar face. Well, the face is actually kind of new, but it's another cat cupcake. Oh, she's running out of ideas. No, I just like certain ideas so much that I have to do different versions of them over and over and over and over again. Also, why are my cupcats always grumpy? That I don't know. As much as I like to say that I won't do another cupcat, I'm not a liar. I did remember from the last time that I used these, when the paint gets shrunk, any areas that have been heavily layered, the surface gets a little like almost fuzzy. They grow fur. So I was keeping that in mind and trying not to layer them up too much, but it was kind of difficult for me to avoid that because, you know, I'm always making mistakes and having to go over them, so kinda sucks that they're not as forgiving on shrink plastic as they normally are. And here we go to my cotton candy sheep. I wanted to do blue cotton candy, but the lightest blue that there is was still too dark. So I decided to make it white instead, which is pretty unusual for cotton candy to be white. I was also keeping in mind the fact that all the colors will darken a little bit when they go into the oven. Obviously, I combined cotton candy with the sheep because cotton candy, wool, you know, they look similar.
Ugh.
Why? Am I doing something wrong here?
Is it me?
I did add little pink and blue dots onto the cotton candy to kind of help with that cotton candy vibe a little bit more, and I actually really like that. Who is it now? Georgie. I don't know what it is about this one, but I just love him. I love his little face. And then he's waving and he's like,
Hello.
I'm calm, I'm normal, I'm an adult. So he is a duck pineapple. The only reason I decided to combine pineapple and a duck is because they're both yellow, but I think that the combination works and it's really cute. And just look at his little face. I don't know why, but I feel like his name is Georgie. Georgie. One of his eyes is slightly larger than the other, but you know what? I don't really care. He's a very special little fellow. Okay, we're getting down to the wire now. Let's power through this last few. This one is a fox watermelon. I wanted to do watermelon and I wanted to make the animal dark pink. And a fox was one of the only animals that I could think of that has a color that's not too far off from dark pink, so that's the reason for that decision. I don't know why I decided to make it look so restful. It's a very comfortable watermelon. This one is some sort of like chipmunk ice cream. He's just a little bit derpy looking, to be honest, and not to give you spoilers, but he gets worse. See, notice how many times I go over his mouth area, the number of layers that I paint on that area. I think I may have even done a few layers off camera. Just take note of that. And last but not least, this one is an idea that I took from a drawing that I did in my sketchbook. I posted a picture of this on Instagram, but I never included this in any video till now. It's a puppy in a pumpkin playing with some guts. What does a puppy have to do with a pumpkin besides the fact that it's just a cute combination? Nothing. But I named him Pumpy the Pumpkin, and I thought he deserved to be a part of this. Okay, so these are all of my designs finally colored. Wow, yeah, that was 2 days of work right there, believe it or not. So it took a second. So now I'm ready to cut them up. This is definitely the most unfun part of the process. This is the part that I freaking hate. It's a pain in the butt. It takes forever. This took like over an hour just to cut these out. And the more complicated you make the shapes, the longer and more annoying it is. And these just have so many little nooks and crannies to cut into. The plastic is really stiff and it tends to crack, but it must be done. If you do this yourself and you want to save some aggravation, you can leave a border around the outside instead of cutting all the way to the edge, but I'm never happy with how that looks. The border ends up really uneven and then it's just like, it looks bad. Just do it right. No, not again. Once I finally suffered through that, you know, I've created tons of tiny little shards of plastic. Now we can move on. After cutting them out, I like to go around the edges and just like do some touch-ups. Sometimes the scissors will like scratch off the paint on the edges, so I just take the time to do some quality control, go over each one, make sure that the outlines are still neat and even and that I'm happy with each design. And boy, I am so satisfied with these at this point. I love how each and every one of them came out, but it's time for my little friends to go on a very hot vacation. I'd like you to meet... It's just a small oven. So set the oven to 325 degrees Fahrenheit. Can you read that? And now I'm pulling out a baking sheet. Okay, that's disgusting. Cover that up with some parchment paper and lay down our first victim.
I'm gonna melt your face.
And here I go on a long journey to the oven. Thanks for that update. Set the thing in the oven, leave it in there. It takes about 2 to 3 minutes. It's pretty quick. You'll notice it curling and doing the wave, and it should eventually get almost completely flat. And then I remove it and immediately set something flat on it to make sure that it lays down completely flat and let it cool. Just like that, on to the next. You can do multiples at once, but I think it works much better to do it one by one. You can give each of them nice personal attention and get to them fast enough to flatten them out completely. Here goes another one.
What the heck was that? Something just explode?
I still have no clue what that was. My oven just boomed loudly for no apparent reason. The biggest mistake I see people make is not leaving them in the oven for long enough. Try to pull them out when they're still like this. Don't do that. Unless something's gone wrong, they should flatten out when they're ready. Uh-oh, something's gone wrong. So this is always a risk when you have little skinny pieces sticking out. If you catch it while it's still hot, you could be able to save it.
Ugh!
It'll be hot though. So now they're all out of the oven and cooled. We had pretty much good results overall, no major problems. This is the worst of it. Remember this mouth I told you about? Look at it now. So I tried to fix that by just brushing away any loose paint, and then I just went over it with a fine liner and a white gel pen. There were similar issues on a couple other ones, mostly in the faces is where I saw the problems happen. I had to do quite a few little touch-ups, and then I went over the edges of this one because the edges got kind of rolled under, so I had to redraw the outline to kind of hide that. They're now cooked and primed, but we want the paint to stay fresh and protected, so I'm gonna now apply a top coat. This is another benefit of using Poscas instead of pencils. You don't have to worry about smudging when you apply a glaze, because that can be an issue when you're using colored pencils. Small problem though, apparently the glaze got stuck to the paper, and for some reason the glaze just kind of like disappeared. This is after 2 coats. Usually this stuff comes out really glossy. They ate it, which would have been fine if I wanted a matte finish, but I kind of wanted a gloss finish, so I decided to break out my Dimensional Magic, and this is a thick gloss that kind of mimics a resin look. It's not as durable and doesn't give as clean or even of a finish as resin does, but I try to reduce my exposure to toxic materials if there's an alternative. I'm just, not trying to die earlier than I have to. I'm not currently too big into resin, so this is fine for me. There may be some bubbles in there, but you can pop most of them with a needle. Sometimes they're like buried under the surface though, and it's just like they're impossible to pop, so you kind of have to deal with it. This takes about 3 to 6 hours to dry, but once it dries, it's completely clear, and I think the gloss makes them look a lot more finished and well put together. And now, finally, they're ready to become pins. Speaking of pins, be sure to check out my new enamel pins in my shop. I designed custom packaging for them, and I'm so happy with how they came out. They're each based on one of my squishy designs from the past. They have so much detail to them. This one literally has every sprinkle colored. I'll leave the link in the description and the iCard if you're interested. So back to these friends. I'm getting some of my pin backs, and I'm using some E6000 glue. Always such a pain to get unclogged. Darn you. And just gluing those on. Now, if you're interested in trying this whole process yourself, I will leave links to the different materials that I've used in the description. Once the glue is dry, they're finally done. And wow, this was a much bigger project than I remembered. Once upon a time, I did 100 of these, but I didn't really put as much effort into the designs for those. I'm really happy with how they came out. Now, if some of these designs were to be made into merchandise, which one or ones would you be most interested in seeing, and in what form? I can't make any promises, but if there is something that a lot of you want, I'll try to make it happen. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and you like my new Foodimal family. Probably the last time I'm going to use that word ever. And I will see you next Friday. Bye!